Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Grant Wood Country Forum, held in conjunction with our wonderful partners with the Cedar Rapids Public Library and the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art, with special assistance throughout our sessions by the Iowa Poetry Association, our wonderful presenters throughout this last 10 weeks. We are so pleased to have been able to offer this combination of really interesting presentations and having conversations about those presentations and being able to creatively write in response to everything that we've learned and talked about these last 10 weeks. So this evening is a special reading presentation session, and that will allow folks to get a feel for what people are inspired to write creatively once they've learned a lot about different aspects of Grant Wood, his artworks, his life, his legacy, as well as the area known as Grant Wood Country from the bird's eye view in the belly of that country in Cedar Rapids. But this is online, so we have participation from coast to coast, and that's been really exciting to have folks experiencing this special artist and his associations with us all. So without further ado, let's enjoy the creativity of the participants of our Grant Wood Country Forum. And first off, we have Joe Coffey.
All right. Hi, everyone, and those of you watching out in YouTube land. My thing is a little different. I have more of a nonfiction article type recounting of various aspects of Grant Wood's life and story and the stories behind a lot of his work. And so tonight, this is a piece from my TikTok series. My account on there is called Grant Wood Stories. I'll put that in the chat for anyone who wants to explore that later. It's basically a video thing where people tell stories and express all kinds of things. So I kind of just take little dives into stories in Grant Wood's realm. So a lot of people don't know this, but the Turner Mortuary, the Turner Funeral Homes, right there where the current History Center is, a couple of different businesses were born out of that building while Grant Wood lived in the converted carriage house, 5 Turner Alley. One of them was an embalming pump that became an embalming pump company, which wasn't just some little pump. That pump, the Turner pump, it became the industry standard. Who knew? They built a better mousetrap. It was a device that could pump the fluids out of a body faster than the other ones on the market. Fast forward to today, it was bought out by a company and it goes under the name Portaboy, but it's the same patent. It was sold. The other company was a microphone company. If any of you are into audio and music production, you're familiar with EV, Electro Voice, and Shure, what used to be Shure Brothers. Right there with them, one of the top 4 or 5 companies in the country making microphones was the Turner Company. And that company was born out of the funeral home right there when Grant Wood was there. So that's what this video is about. I'm going to share my screen now. And I didn't have time because there's a time limitation in TikTok videos, but there's an interesting character. If anyone is looking for a neat piece to write, there's a guy named Everett Foster, violin player, kind of a solo musician, gun for hire, turned quartet leader, turned symphony leader, turned theater manager, turned radio guy who invented this microphone at David Turner's behest, and it kind of bore into this whole new company. But so anyway, here we go. I'll shut up now. Here is the video. And as you know, video sometimes on Zoom can get glitchy or whatever. Hopefully you can see enough of this and the sound kind of works. What do these groovy vintage microphones have to do with the most recognizable American painting ever? I'm Joe Coffey, and this is Grant Wood Stories. In 1930, Grant Wood painted most of American Gothic in this building. It was once the carriage house for one of the great mansions in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. 6 years earlier, Wood helped his friend and primary patron, David Turner, convert the mansion into a new expanded location for Turner Mortuary. The carriage house turned garage was converted into Wood's studio and home, which he called 5 Turner Alley. In 1925, Turner was frustrated that people in the back of the funeral home couldn't hear the minister. He hired Everett Foster to build a custom PA system in the room. PA systems were still fairly new at the time. In 1930, Turner showed off his PA system at a mortician's conference and was soon in the business of making PAs. Foster worked out of a third-floor closet in the funeral home. In 31, the PA business got its own building and expanded into radio repair. Foster ended up making great microphones, so that's what the spin-off company focused on. The Turner Microphone Company's groovy Art Deco designs set it apart. The Turner Company also made embalming pumps and patented a design that would become the industry standard. During World War II, the mic division employed mostly women, peaking at 137. Always a supporter of the arts, the Turner Company hung paintings by Grant Wood and Marvin Cohn in the assembly building, an experiment that apparently increased productivity. Wood died in 42. In 51, the Turner Company made 80,000 microphones and 1,000 embalming machines. In 62, it was making more than 500,000 mics a year. In the late 60s, it was making more than 1 million mics a year. Two unlikely things in the late 60s led to more business: rock bands and the Catholic Church. The popularity of rock music increased demand for stage mics, and the Catholic Church went from Latin to English, so more people actually wanted to hear the priests. Catholic churches across the U.S. suddenly needed microphones. Many went with Turner's gold-plated model, bedazzled with a cross. As the 60s gave way to the 70s, ham radio and CB radios were all the rage. The Turner Company had several buildings by this time, including one in nearby Anamosa, where Grant Wood grew up. The company employed 2,000 people. In 77, company sales peaked at 35 million as CB radio dominated popular culture. But then the market crashed. The FCC prevented and then allowed the sale of 40-channel CB sets. U.S. companies lost money with an oversupply of the old 23-channel sets. Cheaper, foreign-made gear flooded the market, and that was it. The Turner Company had sold to Conrac and then Telex by the end. Today, the old Turner mics of the 30s and 40s are prized by harmonica players. Their limited sonic range but killer looks are perfect for the blues. Check out this bad boy right here. There you have it.
Thank you so much, Joe. That's yes, and that was indeed a groovy way to start our reading session. Were they using groovy in that era?
Probably not.
I don't know. Well, hey, somebody could have been. All right. Well,
I recently came across something that said in 1992, when they were selling the house that John Turner had lived in, they found some of those pumps for embalming fluids. All the way up to 1992. How interesting. That was fascinating. Thank you.
Well, thanks again, Joe. And next up, Debbie, let's hear it.
Hi, I'm Debbie Beilstein, and my piece is called Wood's Worms, and it's inspired by Grant Wood's Fall Plowing, which was part of our presentation in January by Steve Hankin when he talked about the rich history of Iowa's land and people. So here we go. I came to change the landscape, said worm to wood. How are you going to do that? Said wood to worm. I'll munch all day beneath the soil and cast off gifts for farmers to toil. It's what we do, said worm to wood. From black to brown, it's all good. I came to paint the landscape, said wood to worm. How are you going to do that? Said worm to wood. My hands reflect with paint the Iowa I see, the landscape of unique imagery. It's what I do, said wood to worm. I capture scenes for eternity.
Thank you so
That's
much.
it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your charming poem, Debbie. We appreciate it.
Can you
That's
imagine the worms speaking? Yeah.
Yeah, again.
yeah, personification of worms. Why not? I say. Oh, goodness. Well, next we have Steve Hankin. Tell us what you got for us, Steve.
I'm Steve Hankin. I'm the only person that lives in Jones County in this group. And I did the section on landscape, and consequently, I came up with this little ditty. I'm not very good at poetry, but I gave it my best. And what I did was a thing called Iowa Landscape. Sand, silt, and clay, the basic building blocks of soil, piled up to make the hills, washed away to make the valleys. Once seabed, now prairie, rolling, scrolling like the handwriting of God, tempered with brushstrokes of timber and ledges of rock, split by the plow and mellowed with the rain, frosted by the snow and revived by the spring. That's it.
Nicely done, Steve. And it's always admirable when someone is willing to step out of their comfort zone into new things. I think that means, you know, you just got a bunch of new growth brain cells, if I'm reading the science right.
Okay.
Said that. Oh, goodness. Thank you, Steve, so much. Linda, what you got for us?
Well, I'm going to try and share my screen if I can.
Sure.
That's not it. Okay, there's the share button. Maybe? Nope. Well, I don't know what I did, but I can continue anyway. What I had hoped to show you was a photo that I took in Arizona while we were in the desert last month, next to Spring in the Country by Grant Wood. I hadn't thought of that painting when I was writing, but after I was done, I thought, yes, it fits. So if you're familiar with Spring in the Country, then you can think of it as I'm reading the season. Desert sands, spiky cactus in shades of muted green, sharp angled buttes of brown and tan. The Harris hawk flies high in the sky, its flight flowing like the plaintive sound of a native flute. The cardinal's whistle is as sharp and clear as the line between sky and ground. Pockets of flowers in yellow, peach, and purple flash the season's change under the harshness of the sun. There is a sense of isolation here, a premonition of the drying, dying days of summer to come. And miles away, in the land with rounded trees that Grant Wood loved, the season also begins to turn. The cardinal's whistle is as sharp and clear as the air above the melting snow. Blue jays call of warmer days. High overhead, flocks of geese chant a joyous song of winter gone. The new grass wears a gentle green. The fruit trees perfume the air. A coming together of life and warmth, a promise of the bountiful summer to come. We don't have sound from you, Elaine.
That was so lovely, Linda. Was being out of state inspirational? I'm just
It
curious.
was, it always is. And it's wonderful to come home.
Yes, yes, great, great. Well, thanks again. Just lovely.
You're muted.
Sorry, whoops, I accidentally muted myself again. Up next is Jane Vondrak's piece. And Jane lives in Northwest Iowa and has been a long-time contributor to Lyrical Iowa publications over the years, submitting poetry, I learned. But those poems are limited in length. So with our forum, she got to just sprawl a little bit in a good way. So I will read her piece called On the Home Place, Dinner for Threshers. Watch threshers lace leather work boots and stride to ripe fields as sun crests horizon, painting the barn side and workhorses harnessed to hay wagons. Men in roundhouse denim overalls pull caps down to shade eyes. Murmurs create a steady bass and tenor, hum backed up by the percussion of machine and wooden pitchforks. Watch wives peel potatoes into black bottom pots, dust chicken legs, thighs, and breasts sliced from Rhode Island whites who met the morning hatchet. Kitchen heats up, steam rises around women's familiar rhythm to feed men. Soprano and alto voices cackle neighborhood news to the tempo of mixing bowl and metal spoon. Watch sisters smooth red checkered tablecloths on long pine boards and pull walnut back chairs from kitchen and sitting room to accommodate 16 diners. Muslin napkins adorn place settings. Mother's moss, rose, Haviland china, water glasses, mismatched silverware borrowed from Aunt's cedar chest. Whispers and giggles harmonize in measured melodies of adolescent tales. Watch men of earth shuffle at back porch wash, basin filled by buckets of well water, drawn from hand pump, scrubbing chaff and field dust from faces and necks. With a nod, one farmer replaces the next. Lye soap passes hand to hand, and hats are hung on nails by door. Each finds his seat around mother's table. Calloused hands fold over empty plates as grandpa bows his head and his solo baritone raises prayers for communion, cooperative weather, bountiful crops, strong backs, steady hands. Watch heaping bowls of mashed potatoes, roast beef and fried chicken platters float from cook stove to harvest table, bleached aprons knotted at waists. Mothers of nature hand over the feast, pass fresh baked bread and biscuits, followed by grandma's wild plum butter and strawberry jam. Choreographed movements transfix the butterscotch cat, tail twitching, eyeing hopeful morsels from platter to fork to mouth, through almonds to apple pie topped with cheese slices and chocolate cake spread with chocolate raisin frosting. Watch this pastoral scene unfold, uniting family, friends, neighbors, time-honored moments frozen in perfect memory, sparking stories, other fields, other seasons, other harvests. Admire dedication from spring seed to winnow, from oat straw to hay mow, from wash tub to worship, from shelled peas to canned peaches, from stacked plates to compliments for the cooks, from whitened foreheads to reddened knuckles, from friendly handshake to hearty thank you, to next year. That was Jane Vondrak's lovely poem, inspired by Dinner for Threshers.
You're muted, Elaine.
Oh, I'm sorry again. Next up, we have Barb E. Looking forward, Barb.
All right, thank you, Elaine. Barb Edler. I'm going to share my screen. I have a few pieces to share. The first two are basically Iowa portraits, and then I'm working on a draft for Grant Wood's DRA painting. Okay, can you tell me, Elaine, if you see that? Can you see that, Elaine?
Yes, it's starting to come up. See what you
Okay.
got there.
All right, so the first,
We're seeing your screen, but nothing on it.
okay. Well, I'm just gonna read then. Because it says you are screen sharing. I don't know, I'll try it one more time.
Yep. Have you clicked?
Can you see it now?
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Thank you. Quiet sky before the rain. Ancient bare branches stretch graceful arms towards the barely there sun, shyly peeking through the gauzy gray sky. Day's quiet end offers time to reflect before the rain. And the second one's Iowa farm at dawn. Dawn's delightful rays whisk the grays away, warming the shadowed old farm where a cloud of blackbirds swarm, rising high into a feathered sky. The omnipotent windmill waves goodbye. Okay, now this one is definitely a work in progress. So that's not even the title, it's just something I'm working with. And it should be three. Three peeps strut in, barely sparing a glance as they sashay to their throne. Their painted pursed lips poised to strike a venomous vibe. I avert my gaze, dive deep into a mathematical theorem, square to solve this mystery before I am the poor victim they choose to abuse. Years later, a saving grace. I relish Grant Wood's painting satirizing their evil faces. Preening with their cups of tea, just desserts indeed. And then one of the sessions was on ekphrastic poetry. And this was actually what I found from Eve Drulow's painting called Atomic Answer Annihilation. It's called Goodbye Mankind. One white hand drops fat man, little boy, obliterating history, annihilating a family's heart. Eve, did you feel the shock waves, the concussions below your feet? Life disappears on your canvas, shock waves of color, Navajo sands, mangoes, coral blush, etched fan prints delicately waving goodbye to mankind. How can we forget the young girls? Their lovely slender limbs shattered across the orange mountain, where their brittle bits of bone crumbled like dry sugar cake in their father's hands. How can we forget a city in flames, forever silenced? Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Barb, for sharing that poem. And that is lovely because Eve Drulow certainly has deep, deep Iowa connections. And it would be fun to learn more about her. And I know we can because some of her things are going to be at the CRMA, if not already, or maybe coming up in May. Don't hold me to that. But some lovely imagery, Barb, and thank you so much for sharing all those pieces. And next up we have Lynn.
Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. I haven't done this before, so we'll see if it works. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Lynn Wheelinga, and I'm going to read a poem that I wrote about Grant Wood's sister, Nan. What else can Nan do? Now that father is gone, mother parents alone, she cries quiet tears and sighs aloud fears. We brothers can farm with strong young arms, but who can we trust to bring comfort to us? With tender words and gentle hand, Nan can. We survived somehow, all grown up now, myself, Grant, Frank, Jack, and Nan. As mother grows older, the wind feels colder, ground hardened. Who will tend her garden? Living with her husband on the land, Nan can. Kept my overalls, left cows, regional artist now. Commissioned to paint stained glass window. I look for support of high scaffolding sort. But what woman in town will model this gown? To hold a wreath with soldiers beneath? Nan can. Nan poses with dentist for American Gothic. Expression enough to show farming is tough. Some bad ilk said Nan's face soured milk. So as loyal brother, I paint another of she who graciously shares my legacy. Yes, Nan can. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. That was so enjoyable. And I wish Dan were here to hear it.
It was fun to write.
Enjoy it for herself. Yes, indeed. Okay, next up we have Christine. Are you ready, Christine? Yes, she is.
I'm Christine Marcotte. My poem is called Reminiscing on Stone City and American Gothic. Iowa isn't as flat as Illinois, I thought on the ride to an Easter potluck 10 days after swapping Midwestern states. Deviled eggs, ham, beef, jello salad, apple pie. Endless hills hiding fluorescent eggs amidst kids playing football and roller skating after the hunt. My new friend said with her Brazilian accent, we're in Grant Wood country. Pitchfork painting guy, I thought. I'd seen American Gothic at the Chicago Museum of Art, a framed copy at my aunt's farmhouse. That's me and your uncle, she'd joke. She told me the name of the artist as if it wasn't plain and unknown to me. As a child, I preferred the dancing ballerinas of Degas and the sweet sisters of Renoir. Their French names sounded sophisticated, poetic. As I grow older, Grant Wood's snake plants and rolling landscapes remind me of my Midwestern roots. My grandma's potlucks with deviled eggs and jello salad. Art that people who don't live in mansions appreciate. Luscious landscapes to roam about freely without the weight of perfect dances or fancy dresses. The painting of Stone City has simple windmills and farmhouses with kitchens before the internet became the world's distraction. Symmetrical hills that make sense even while pandemics and civil unrest flood the news. So while I can still admire French Impressionists' work, Grant Wood's country is where I have come to appreciate life, breath, memories of grandma's cherry pie, gatherings, resting after hard work. Grant Wood is no longer a simple name, but a country, a representative, a microscope. That's it.
Well, I got to say, I love that you mentioned Degas and Renoir because my grandmother exposed me to the Impressionists when I was a very young girl, and plus the other masters and stuff. And I too had that sense of, oh, I'm being transported to another place, and it does seem so different and sophisticated, but yet being older and the comfort of coming to know more deeply what, you know, the American Gothic and the whole surroundings kind of is and means. So thank you for taking a deep dive into that, Christine. Next, we have Sylvia.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, I'm using my iPad, and so it's an unfamiliar way of doing business here. First, I'm going to read my longer piece, which is Random Thoughts, or as Elaine titled my Random Thoughts last year, Down the Rabbit Hole with Sylvia. So anyway, and this is about Daughters of the Revolution. I have long been fascinated by Grant Wood's Daughters of the Revolution. I feel I know the three women gazing at me from this painting, even if I don't actually know who they are. I know their dresses, their hairstyles, their glasses, their jewelry. I am sure they had names like Bertha, Twyla, Alcinda Maud, Ethel, or Fanny, my great aunts and my grandmother, all very present throughout my childhood, all firmly convinced that their own view of the world was the correct one. But it was the teacup that truly drew me in, that mesmerizing blue, the intricate chinoiserie. I just looked up how to pronounce this word, and it is chinoiserie. Okay, that meaning the effect from Asia. The curl of the handle. I have long had a love affair with blue willow. From my first encounter with a friend's tea set, I knew I would someday have my own lovely dishes. I began collecting blue willow as a young woman when I inherited a set of Allerton blue willow from a great aunt Hildreth, to be exact. Great Aunt Hildreth, who was married to George Washington Kincaid, my great uncle. This set was the result of many trips to the A&P in Sheraton, Iowa during the Great Depression, when grocery stores and movie theaters frequently offered dishes as an incentive for patronage at their businesses. This meant regular blue-collar folk could collect enough pieces to set a respectable table on Sunday. So why does this matter? If one observes the meticulous detail Grant Wood put into his work, whether serious or satirical, it seems there is a reason for everything. The cup held aloft by the woman in the center demonstrates a pretentious effort to appear almost royal. This affectation adds to the hypocrisy of those tracing their lineage to the very folks who fought to remove the oppression of the royals they now imitate. As my grandmother Fanny would say when she fixed her eyes on some of my transgressions, remember, you have Yankee blood. But these ladies did imitate poorly, as Grant Wood so subtly demonstrates, in the way that the cup holder holds the cup. A quick internet search for the proper way to hold a teacup will lead you not only to specific directions, but videos featuring Queen Elizabeth II's butler, demonstrating how it is done. No hooking, for heaven's sakes, of the pointer finger, but rather pinching the handle between the thumb and the pointer finger and balancing the base of the cup against the third finger and the last two fingers supporting the bottom of the cup. Well, this, however, is damn near impossible if one has short, stubby fingers, as I do, with a touch of arthritis. Francis Prescott, Grant's one-time boss at McKinley and reportedly the hand model, must have had an elegant hand with long, slender fingers. Some critics have suggested Grant Wood deliberately lengthened the fingers to suggest a structure more claw-like, but I am not drawn to that interpretation. And that's as far as I've gotten with that part of it. But there's more to come because I have a ton of research that makes the painting even more amazing to me. And I can't share my screen with this, but my wonderful print from the Cincinnati Museum of Art, where the Daughters of the Revolution now hangs, will soon be framed, and I will find a place to put it where it won't scare small children. But it is one of my favorites. And just to mention, I have a print from a Gazette, the Sunday Gazette and Republican from 1927. And this features some of the ladies of the Ashley chapter of the DAR, which I think was the chapter that was unwilling to allow the dedication of the window. And if you look at the hairstyles, Grant Wood was pretty spot on when he drew his 3 Daughters of the Revolution. I am curious though, because there is a young, very stylish looking woman her name is Mrs. Worth Averill, and she was listed as a socialite. Now, this is Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but apparently we had our own socialites here. Later, I read in one of the Grant Wood diaries that Debbie so graciously turned me on to, that when Grant was dying, the Averills went to see him in Iowa City. So apparently he forgave her, or she was not part of the women that tried to keep him from receiving the recognition he deserved for the window. So that's a longer piece. And also how Grant Wood just looked at every detail. And I counted, there are 138 little detailed dots here to represent the beading, the board beading that would have been on that frame. 138, just imagine how long that would have taken, and the concentration to make them each just about totally perfect. So, sorry, I can't help myself.
Why would we want you to help yourself?
I think it just, sometimes people are like, oh my God, tell her to stop talking. Can the library or the art museum, whomever, can they edit out some of this? But really, each thing, as you start to pull back, each painting, each event, as you start pulling back the layers, it's like hearing about the Turner microphones. It's just, to me, it's just so amazing how these things connect.
Well, that's part of what we do here at the forum. Precisely that. So thank you so much for going down that rabbit hole and sharing with us, Sylvia. And looking forward to seeing more, because you're capturing that in an article, right, for us? Yes, that's right. Okay, good. That's awesome. Well, next up, we have Audrey Mueller. Would love to hear from you, Audrey, if you're game for reading, and I think you are.
Okay, yes, I am. And I wore plaid tonight. So anyway, so you might lose my video here in a little bit, but it doesn't stay on very long. But I've got a couple of poems that I wrote about the plaid shirt that Grant Wood painted. So the first one is an ekphrastic poem. Grant Wood's plaid shirt. Grew up a farm boy like Grant himself, lived on bulbous hills, painted like overalls. A Wood signature style. Plaid goes with bibs in farm life. I see plaids in the spring. End row turns, crisscrossing seeds in the fertile, warm, wormed soil. When crops emerge, the green shoots define those plaids near corners of the field. As shoots stretch tall through summer into fall, the plaids disappear among the greenery's growth. Fall plaids are found on the headlands of a stubbled cornfield. When the harvest is over, crops are binned away, fields become like a comfortable plaid red flannel I wear in winter as snow covers Grant Wood's curvaceous harvested fields. That's one. That's my first one. And this other is a memory of kind of a memory that my husband had, though it's his memory. I wrote it. I wrote this. It's called Plaid Shirt. I had a plaid shirt, a favorite shirt, blue and tan fibers, up and down and across. Busy mom with 11 to tend, grandma in trailer willing to help. Oh, the rough boys. Unless clothes were kept mended, they couldn't be passed down. She'd stitched and patched and sewed, buttons back on. I had a plaid shirt, a favorite shirt, blue and tan fibers, up and down and across. Mom had sent some shirts to be mended, mine included. Grandma felt needed, so she started right in. She had 2 piles of material, pants and shirts to hem or add buttons to. Mine needed a button. And a second pile. I had a plaid shirt, a favorite shirt, blue and tan fibers, up and down and across. There it was, torn to thin strips, rolled into a ball for a rag rug. I lost a friend that day at age 5. I had a plaid shirt. That's it.
Oh, thank you so much, Audrey. That's
You're welcome.
fun. Well,
Thank you.
and we sure, yes, we sure did have a lot of fun rolling around in Grant Wood's painting last year that Paul and made a presentation on called Plaid Sweater, right, Paul? And it was so fun. And that sweater is actually living at the University of Iowa, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah. So there we go. That's great. And let's see, it looks like it is my turn now, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Can you okay, you can see my screen? Okay, and all right. And what I've done here is it's a this is a video treatment of a poem I wrote that employs a line of poetry from J. Sigmund as the end word of each of the lines of my poem. And it's based on Grant Wood's Sultry Night. And I was so tickled last year when Cedar Rapids Museum of Art was doing its National Poetry Month thing that they posted my poem along with the original painting. And so that was really neat. And so that kind of inspired me to like kind of get off my duff and render this to video, which I like to do with some things. And I would say that all the imagery here is from Grant Wood country. And if you have any questions about where it's from, we can talk about that at the end.
Please say when the temperature is just right, so that I may shed all that I have in favor of only what I need, so that I may curry the favor of my own voice or that of a spiritual realm, one unconcerned with sin purging. Please paint a path, winding or straight, where I walk free as undammed water. Then I shall marvel that your artist brush does so easily mingle with dusk's boozy glow, dotting our chatter with the company of stately friends, which some call trees. At day end, I have to know Would you rather clean your brushes in the heavy but hidden country air than within the enclosed spaces of your ivory tower? With heart beating, I ask, must the city summon you, it with its verbose buzz and scholarly debates? I wager it has its own bigots.
Okay, I will stop sharing. Okay, and that was my tribute to sultry night. So, and I thank everyone who's read so far. And this would be a good place for us to just stop and chat a little bit about any questions anybody has about anything they saw. I will pause the recording for a second in case we'd like to chat. And I want to thank everyone so much for having shared their creative inspirations. And I would like to invite anyone who is watching this video to join us for next year's forum. So please watch the Cedar Rapids Public Library website, or if you're a Facebooker, Grant Wood Country Forum is the page to watch. In any event, I hope you spend some time rolling around in this beautiful area and its culture, its history, and the legacy of its famous artist's son. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating this year, and hope to see you next year.